But first tonight, the big story and our continuing focus on the fallout of the terror attack on the Pathankot airbase. The over 80-hour long terror encounter is finally over. The operations culminating after all 6 attackers were eliminated. The joint NSG and Air Force operation is now focusing on sanitizing the airbase. As the Pakistan links to Pathankot attacks become clearer, Pak Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif called up his Indian Prime Minister counterpart Narendra Modi earlier today. During their 15-minute-long conversation, the Pakistan Prime Minister reportedly told Prime Minister Modi that prompt and decisive action against the terrorists behind the airstrike would be taken. India had earlier conveyed specific information to Pakistan on its alleged links to the attack. During the telephone call, Mr. Modi reportedly pressed for urgent action against those responsible for the attack, and Mr. Sharif has promised, we are told, to fully cooperate and investigate the leads and information provided by New Delhi. I want to go straight across to our correspondent Maha Siddiqui to find out more on that phone conversation between the two leaders. Maha, what are you picking up? Has that phone conversation, in a sense, melted the ice once more?
Yes, it does appear to be so, Rajdeep, because what I'm learning from my sources is that the situation after that 15-minute conversation between Narendra Modi and Nawaz Sharif seems to have changed the situation, in the sense that till yesterday, if India was considering at least 4 options as far as the Foreign Secretary level talks are concerned, which also included rescheduling of the talks, it now appears that India is now seeing Nawaz Sharif's call as the acknowledgement of the fact that this attack took place from, or rather planned by people in Pakistan. The handlers were in Pakistan, and India seems to suggest that this is a significant call from the Prime Minister of Pakistan, because this is for the first time that they have not gone into denial mode, and they have made some sort of admission that the attack could have been hatched in Pakistan and that they are willing to take action. Therefore, India is now waiting for some perceivable action from Pakistan, which could mean putting people who are perceived to be the perpetrators of this crime under house arrest, or taking them into custody, detaining them, and therefore that will be seen as an action by Pakistan, and India could go ahead with the comprehensive bilateral dialogue that the two sides had agreed when Sushma Swaraj had gone to Islamabad. Therefore, it now appears that the Foreign Secretary level talks are perhaps going to be held as per schedule. But the other option being mulled by India is also rescheduling of talks if need be, to give some sort of time to Pakistan to take some sort of action in this case. The third option that is being mulled is to narrow down the ambit of these talks to mostly focus on terror. These are the options before India. The option of cancelling the talks seems to have been ruled out.
Okay, just one quick query, Maha. You're saying that Nawaz Sharif in that phone conversation has admitted to a Pakistan role, or has not ruled out a Pakistan role?
You know, Rajdeep, this is the question I asked my sources as well, that is this an acknowledgement of the fact that this attack was hatched on Pakistan soil? They say that at least Pakistan has not gone into denial mode. Earlier, they would outrightly reject any evidence that India would submit to them. Remember, after 26/11, the amount of evidence that India had given in the form of dossier was rejected by Pakistan as literature. This time, Nawaz Sharif has told all the investigating agencies to look at all the evidence, sift through the evidence given by India, and to take it seriously. I believe, as far as I have learned from my sources, is that when the NSA, Ajit Doval, spoke to his counterpart in Pakistan, Nasir Janjua, names of some handlers have also been given to Pakistan. And therefore, India is looking at it as an acknowledgement that the conspiracy was hatched there and that Pakistan is willing to take action. But the version coming in from Pakistan is slightly different, so we have to take note of that as well.
Okay, Maha Siddiqui joining us. That phone conversation taking place between the two leaders, giving some sign that maybe the talks will go ahead between India and Pakistan as scheduled in the middle of January at the Foreign Secretary levels. Should those talks go ahead? We are putting all the options before you, but joining me now is Omar Abdullah, the former Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister of the National Conference, to get a perspective from Omar on whether he believes talks should go ahead. Omar Abdullah, you're hearing what Maha Siddiqui told us there, the phone conversation between Nawaz Sharif and Prime Minister Modi. In the circumstances, do you believe that Mr. Sharif should be given the benefit of doubt and talks should go ahead as scheduled in the middle of January?
Look, I believe talks should go ahead. I think the call that the government has to take is whether to replace Foreign Secretary level talks with some sort of dialogue between the two NSAs. Because clearly there is a problem, there is a crisis of confidence between the two countries. I'm not for a moment suggesting that talks should break off or that contact should be broken. But I'm not sure whether business as usual is something that we can necessarily sort of agree upon. To send the Foreign Secretary level to send the Foreign Secretary to talk about the comprehensive dialogue would perhaps suggest that this is just an ordinary dialogue in the regular routine of things.
Right.
Perhaps what is needed in the immediate instance is for the two NSAs to meet to work out exactly what Pakistan plans to do about the evidence that has been presented to it. I think it's a good thing that the Pakistani Prime Minister initiated a conversation and has spoken to the Indian Prime Minister. That may perhaps give some breathing space to the Indian Prime Minister to keep the process alive. But I think, sorry, yeah?
But will leaders like you give the Prime, or when I say you, will the opposition give the Prime Minister that breathing space? Or is the opposition perhaps going to now say, no question of talking to Pakistan? I mean, you're today on this program saying, let's talk at the NSA level, let's start NSA level dialogue with the focus on terror. But I've heard other opposition leaders who are virtually asking the Prime Minister to call off the dialogue. So will the opposition give the Prime Minister the breathing space, the domestic constituency give the Prime Minister the breathing space to go ahead with dialogue?
Look, Rajdeep, I can't speak for the opposition. I'm a very small constituent of what was the UPA. And I'm in no position whatsoever to speak for the Congress or any of the other opposition parties. I can only appeal to them. Look, the BJP did this when the UPA was in power. With every incident, they called for Pakistani heads, they called for an end to the dialogue, they said terror and talks can't go together. But that was it was short-sighted. And they're paying the price for that now because those are exactly the same arguments that are being used against them. I've made this point before that you have to insulate things like the Indo-Pak dialogue from domestic political agendas and domestic political constituencies. It's far too important a process to be held hostage to this sort of political give and take. So I think what might help is for the Prime Minister to reach out to leaders of the Congress, to reach out to senior leaders of the opposition, explain to them exactly what happened in Lahore, what was the thinking behind his dropping in for that cup of tea or that wedding or whatever it was he attended, and then appeal to them that, look, we can agree to disagree on a whole host of other issues, whether economic or other, but at least on crucial national security issues, and particularly the dialogue with Pakistan, let's take it out of the political agenda and let's agree that dialogue with Pakistan has to go ahead, even if it's not, as I said, in the routine dialogue between the two foreign secretaries. At least the national security advisors can meet. Our concerns with regard to terror, particularly in the light of what happened in Pathankot or what has happened in Afghanistan also,
but can
be placed on the table. And
can we trust Prime Minister Sharif? Can we trust Prime Minister Sharif? The huge trust deficit that exists. Do we even know whether the Prime Minister is in control, whether the Pakistan Prime Minister is actually in control of the possible jihadi army nexus that exists?
You know, Rajdeep, unfortunately, we don't get to choose the leadership of Pakistan. You know, these were the same questions we asked ourselves when General Musharraf was reaching out to us. And look what we did with that opportunity. We had a great opportunity then to try and make some headway in a dialogue process, but we spent the first few years asking ourselves, can we trust the architect of Kargil? Now again, we have what seems to be the makings of some sort of relationship, some sort of chemistry between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. If we're going to go back to the drawing board and say, well, can we trust the man? Then we might as well just call it quits and say, look, no matter who the leader of Pakistan is, we're always going to have doubts. Pakistan gets to choose who leads them. We have to deal with whoever is put into that position.
But if that person is not, you know, the worry, of course, is that if the person is not in control, we can get carried away in a sense by the photo ops, by the atmospherics, by the phone calls, and are not sure when the next terror strike will take place, God forbid.
So Rajdeep, let's not have the photo ops. Let's not have the atmospherics. I'm not for a moment suggesting that the Prime Minister should drop in Lahore again, or he should ask Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif to drop in for a cup of tea the next time he flies over India heading somewhere. I'm saying you take it completely out of the public purview. Take it away. Like you had a dialogue between the two NSAs in Bangkok, and the first thing we heard about it was when the government of India acknowledged that meeting. Do the same thing again. Keep it out of the limelight until such time as some amount of credibility or some amount of confidence is rebuilt in the system, and then we can go ahead with a more public dialogue. But in the immediate instance, fine. Let's take it out of the public domain for the time being.
You're making an interesting point. You're saying move away from the photo ops. Try and take it out of this sort of constant glare of the media. You're also saying that the Prime Minister should take the opposition into confidence as to what prompted his Lahore engagement. You're saying that's important in a sense to build a kind of consensus on the road ahead.
Oh, absolutely. I made this point immediately after the Prime Minister dropped in to Lahore. At that time, there was no inkling that something like Pathankot would happen. But I did make this point that the Prime Minister needs to take the country and particularly the opposition into confidence, the same way he reached out to them to get the crucial, the GST bill through Parliament. He needs to reach out to Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, to Dr. Manmohan Singh, to perhaps some of the other senior opposition leaders, explain to them what exactly he has in mind on the Indo-Pak front, and take them into confidence. I think that assumes even more importance now in light of what has happened in Pathankot and the sort of pressure that he's under to completely pull back from any dialogue. Because pulling back from a dialogue is not an option. We've done it in the past. We did it in the aftermath of the Parliament attack. We did it in the aftermath of 26/11. Every time we pull back from a dialogue, setting conditions for Pakistan to fulfill, we go back to the dialogue table without those conditions having been fulfilled at all. So how does that strengthen our position in any way? So I think if anything, we need to remain engaged. Right. We need to keep talking, but we need to keep that dialogue at a manageable level without all the theatrics and the high-profile cups of tea and things like that. Just keep it manageable, keep it low level, but keep it sustained.
That's very interesting. Omar Abdullah, you're saying sustain the dialogue, but keep it at a low level, forget the atmospherics, and just focus on the content of the dialogue. Omar Abdullah, thank you very much for joining us and giving us your perspective, because that's an interesting perspective that you're coming up with there. Prime Minister to go for a dialogue, to continue with the dialogue, but shorn of all the photo ops and the drama that is associated at times with any Indo-Pak initiative. Meanwhile, on the ground, the anti-terror operation at the Pathankot air base is more or less over, as the 6 terrorists, believed to be their total number, have been killed. But the combing operations are likely to continue till tomorrow because the forces are not taking any chances. An embarrassed centre has now gone for a full-fledged post-mortem, with Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar, who is at the airbase, admitting to security lapses. Mr. Parrikar promising a complete probe once the operations are wrapped up, saying that enough proof has been gathered that points at Islamabad's role in the terror strike.
अभी जो सामान मिला है उसमें there are some indications that some of the material is made in Pakistan, that's all. बाकी investigation NIO को करने दो. As far as we are concerned, my worry was how they have managed to enter UN. Though while I congratulate our Pura forces that they managed to contain them in a corner and didn't allow them to go beyond that corner, I was still worried about how they have managed to come inside. I can only tell you, let the 1 minute, थोड़ा चीजें investigation के ऊपर छोड़ दीजिए, उनको investigation करने दो. उन्होंने they have tracked down the methodology. They will investigate and come back to you.
That was the Defence Minister. Now, India Today was the first channel to question the version of the Gurdaspur SP Salwinder Singh, who claimed he was abducted and subsequently released by the terrorists who attacked Pathankot. Now, the National Investigation Agency is finding that his claims are murky and contrary to one another. The top cops, constantly changing versions, have now made, as I said, his stand questionable.
Gurdaspur SP Salvinder Singh, who was abducted by the terrorist, is now under the scanner. NIA DG has termed the actions of Salvinder Singh as murky. Sharad Kumar has said that the Gurdaspur SP is changing his statements.
Let our officers talk to him first, and then we'll come to a conclusion whether he's a suspect or what about. Right now he's an eyewitness. Till we talk to him, you see, and the other people who are accompanying him, I can't come to a different conclusion.
The NIA, which has taken over the probe of Pathankot terror attack, will soon interrogate the Gurdaspur SP. The investigating agency will also quiz his friends Rajesh Verma and their cook.
The security agencies are now zeroing in on the relationship between the terrorists and drug smugglers. The probe will also throw light on the local sympathizers who may have directly or indirectly helped the terrorists reach Pathankot and mastermind a major terror strike.
On Tuesday, India Today spoke to all three eyewitnesses, including Gurdaspur SP, to unearth the abduction mystery. Giving a detailed account of his abduction, the SP said that the terrorists were heavily armed and they would have killed him if they knew he was a senior police officer.
गाड़ी मेरे वो राजेश वर्मा चला रहा था, तो हमने एकदम गाड़ी रोक दी. हमने सोचा शायद कोई नाका है, ठीक है. नाका है तो जब एकदम उसने रोके, एकदम ही अंदर आ गए. दरवाजा खोला, फटाफट उसने बोला लाइट बंद करो, और पीछे बड़ा हमें पीछे धकेल दिया और साथ ही मारा जो पीछे से नीचे कर दिया.
पहले पता लग गया जी, ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਬੈਠ ਗਏ ਗੱਡੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਪਿੱਛੇ ਨੂੰ ਮੂੰਹ ਕਰਤਾ, ਮੇਰੇ ਪਰਨਾ ਪਾੜ ਕੇ ਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅੱਖਾਂ ਮੂੰਹ ਬੰਨ ਕੇ ਤੇ ਆਖਿਆ ਵੀ ਬੋਲਣਾ नहीं.
मेरे वो जो राइफल के मारे घूसे मारे मेरे को पकड़ने के लिए, फिर एक ने मेरा सिर पे ऐसे पकड़ के और 2 बार चाकू से वार की. तो जैसे ही खून की पिचकारियां निकली सीट पे गाड़ी की, तो उनमें से एक बोला भी ये अब 1 आधा मिनट ही जन्नत में पहुंच जाएगा.
However, the account given by the three survivors leave many unanswered questions. Why did the terrorist only kill taxi driver and not the SP? Why was the SP's friend not shot dead after he disclosed the SP's identity? Why did the terrorist not notice beacon on the SP's car? Despite alert, why did the SP venture out at night without security? All eyes are now on the NIA probe, which will unearth the mystery behind the abduction of the SP and the 2 others. Bureau Report, India Today.
The mystery of the SP and what happened in Punjab. Rahul Kawal is now joining me. Rahul, you spoke to the NIA chief. What is the sense they are getting about the role of the superintendent of police and what Manjeet was saying in the story, the possibility of links between drug smugglers and terrorists?
You know, let's just for a moment leave the DG NIA on the side and focus on what the officers investigating this case have been saying. This is being looked at by different agencies. The picture that we've been able to gather is that investigators now believe that the drug mafia in Punjab played a very important role in ensuring that these terrorists came in. Their underground tunnels, some of which operate apparently with the active connivance of the BSF that's deployed over there. The Punjab police is aware of it. The suspicion is that several Punjab police officials are also on the payrolls of the drug lords. Now what they're looking at is, was this a compromised officer? Also, more significantly, who else in the Punjab police and the BSF deployed along the Punjab border is part of this drug trade? Remember, this was an issue that had been taken up by Mr. Pathak, the BSF DG, previously as well when the Gurdaspur attack happened. However, despite that, despite shuffling some personnel around, the situation on the ground didn't change. They feel that the rot is very deep and massive change is required. This is something that the Prime Minister is very upset about. This is something we know that Ajit Doval is very upset about. They believe that this is not acceptable. How can you have forces colluding with smugglers? And the point, Rajdeep, is sometimes they're sending in big consignments of drugs. On other occasions, those people could be bringing in arms, weapons, heavy grenades like they did in the case of the Pathankot attackers. And if the officials posted on the border, those are supposed to guard us and stop this from happening, are compromised, that's not acceptable. The DG BSF is himself going to Pathankot. A massive investigation is currently underway and the government wants to get to the bottom of this. That's what they're working towards.
And what about questioning this SP, interrogating him? Are they seeing him in his versions, as they say, are constantly changing? Are they seeing him as someone who perhaps has more to answer for than he has revealed so far?
This is where I want to refer to the conversation I had with the Director General of the National Investigating Agency, who told us on record, Sharad Kumar says on record, that his constantly changing statements are very murky. The fact that in the first instance when he spoke to the Punjab police officials, he gave them a different version of how he was taken, how he was kidnapped, what happened when he was in the custody of these terrorists and why he was let off. Then when he spoke to the media the first occasion, he gave another theory. Later when he spoke to journalists today, he gave a third version. This is causing deep suspicion. What we've also been able to gather is that here is an officer who has been in the bad books of his force for a while. His conduct has been under suspicion. There have been investigations that have been carried out against him. He's known to be in the Punjab police circles as a colourful character, and therefore initially he wasn't taken seriously, but they're also questioning his theories. He will be very soon questioned by the NIA. They're not looking at him as a suspect just yet, but depending on that questioning, a case could also be lodged against him depending on what they find.
Okay. Rahul Kanwal joining us there. He'll have much more on a round table that he has at 10 p.m. tonight, so look out for that. Thanks very much for joining us. Okay, now all this is playing out amidst politics, because typically both sides, the government and the opposition, are at loggerheads over alleged intelligence failures in the Pathankot attack and how should the Prime Minister be responding to Nawaz Sharif's overtures. Should the talks with Pakistan go ahead or not is remaining a central contentious political point. It's a question, along with the intelligence failures in Punjab, that I raised with Manish Tiwari, senior leader of the Congress and former Ludhiana MP and spokesperson, and Sudhanshu Trivedi, the national spokesperson of the BJP. This is BJP versus Congress, our face-off tonight. Manish Tiwari, the Congress and particularly you've been pushing the line that Punjab has suddenly become the hotbed of terror activities in the last few months. Are you suggesting somewhere that what happened in Pathankot, are you holding the Punjab police responsible for what went wrong?
Well, Rajdeep, somebody has to take the responsibility, and obviously the responsibility has to be taken by the Punjab police, as it is the first responder, and then by the government of India, which was again extremely laggard in its response. That is the tactical part of it. And the strategic part of it is that the Prime Minister of India needs to take responsibility, because after Ufa, Gurdaspur happened, after Lahore, Pathankot happened. Earlier, when Prime Minister Vajpayee had gone to Lahore, it was followed by Kargil, which Pakistan, when Pakistan tried to invade and capture Indian territory. So therefore, there is an inherent inconsistency in both the tactical and the strategic response. So obviously somebody has to take responsibility, for the tactical goof up which took place, that notwithstanding the fact that there was a possible warning, the government did not respond in time, both the state government and the central government, and the larger strategic responsibility that this government seems to have no policy towards Pakistan.
Some would say that the Congress party, during whose tenure there were several terror attacks, never took accountability or responsibility itself. So let's be very clear. When it comes to terror attacks, it's not as if terror attacks only began after the NDA took power. Far from it. There were a spate of terror attacks, Mr. Tiwari, when the Congress was in power. I just want to put that on record. But Sudhanshu,
and there were a spate of terror attacks, Mr. Rajdeep Sardesai, when the NDA government was in office before that, And there were a spate of terror attacks when Mr. Gujral was in office, when Mr. Devagowda was in office, and I can even go further back. So here it is not a question of politicizing terror. The question fundamentally is, there was an alert in the case of Gurdaspur. The government responded in a tardy manner. They were possibly far too busy partying with Adnan Sami and trying to project as if there is no intolerance in this country to really take cognizance of those
Just
warnings.
just a minute.
And at a strategic level,
Yes.
you know, the Prime Minister's entire policy has fallen flat on its face.
I want to come back though to the serious point you are making about the intelligence failure, because today the Punjab police, Sudhanshu Trivedi, has claimed that there was absolutely no failure on their part. But the fact is, what we are now learning is the Gurdaspur SP Salvinder Singh had tipped his bosses much beforehand that terrorists were on the prowl. They apparently refused to believe what he said. Today the SP's cook, Madan Gopal, has told us that not only was vital information shared with the police immediately after he was freed, it was ignored. And then he was allegedly tortured by the police. So clearly there are serious question marks over the role of the Punjab police. And remember, there's a BJP Akali government, sir, out there. And whether the centre acted also quickly on the information that was passed on.
If we have gone through the statement of NIA chief,
yes,
that the SP Salvinder Singh is going to be interrogated because he's consistently changing his statement. So the whatever he's saying, its validity is yet to be verified. But on the issue of such a huge and vast issue of terrorism, of the Pakistani-sponsored terrorism, if we want to, and such a chronic issue, want to concentrate itself on just an state issue, I don't think this is justifiable.
No.
If you look at Pathankot,
One minute, sir. Today we've had Manohar Parrikar, the defense minister of the country, admitting that there could have been security lapses. We've got a situation where the SP and his cook have come on record saying information has been passed on which has perhaps not been actioned. The question is that surely now there is something that is going wrong in the entire security apparatus, and Punjab in particular has become a soft target.
yes, of course, if the terrorists have managed to intrude in the Indian side, definitely there would have been some security lapse, which will be find out after the due investigation, as the defense minister was saying. But what I want to say,
yes,
Rajdeep,
yes,
don't take Pathankot as an isolated incident. Take Pathankot to Mazar-e Sharif. There is a distinct difference which the Congress party is not able to comprehend, that after the withdrawal of NATO forces, there is a new type of emergence on the Pakistan and Afghanistan border, which was not there prior to 2014. And
sir,
even
it also
Mr. Manish
happens
Tiwari.
1 week after the Jhapiyas and Papiyas with Nawaz Sharif. The
Then in
fact
this
is,
context,
1 week ago, the Prime
Rajdeep,
Minister
I
of the
would
country
also-
is in
then-
Lahore with Jhapiyas and Papiyas with Mr. Sharif.
In this context, one fact should also be remembered. After 26/11, Pakistan response came after 4 days. That too with so many conditions. Even they were mentioning the cause of terror. In this case, NSA has given some proofs to the National Security Advisor of Pakistan. Pakistan Prime Minister himself called Indian Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, and he has given instruction that they will facilitate whatever the leads has been given by Indian side. Still we are saying that after the due conclusion of this operation and the subsequent reaction, we will decide the future course of action. So there is a huge difference between the reaction of Indian side and that too of the Pakistani side during the terror attacks during the UPA regime and this terror attack of Pathankot.
Manish Tiwari, respond to what you're hearing, that there is a huge difference. Nawaz Sharif picks up the phone, rings up the Prime Minister, promises that he will act on every lead that India provides him. The fact, according to the BJP, is that there is a vacuum which has been created after the withdrawal of NATO forces, and this is leading to a spurt in terror, be it in Mazar-e Sharif or Pathankot.
For the lack of a better word, Rajdeep, and I have tremendous respect for Dr. Sudhanshu Trivedi, it is hogwash. Because may I remind him that when they invited Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif for their coronation, in the time lag between the invitation and Nawaz Sharif's arrival in Delhi on the 26th of May 2014, there was a terror attack on the Indian consulate in Mazar-e Sharif. So therefore, this is not the first attack which has taken place on the Indian consulate. This is the second attack which has taken place. And to try and sort of locate the terror attack in the context of the NATO drawdown or the ISF drawdown is completely trying to obfuscate the issue. And number two, what does Nawaz Sharif really count for in Pakistan? I mean, his writ does not run beyond Rai Wind. When General Raheel Sharif went to Washington DC in November, the United States government rolled out the red carpet. He was treated much better than Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, because the US administration realizes as to who really calls the shots in Pakistan. And the deep state in Pakistan, as represented by the Pakistani army establishment, by the ISI and its various instrumentalities, do not want peace with India. They demonstrated it in UFA itself, when after having obtained equivalence on the question of terror, Pakistan walked away, from the UFA joint statement. Even before the ink had dried on it, the Pakistan had, curled it into a ball and chucked it into the dustbin. And that was immediately followed up with an attack in Gurdaspur. And then, notwithstanding that, you had the NSA level talks in Bangkok. What transpired between the two NSAs has never been made public. You had Sushma Swaraj going to Islamabad for the Heart of Asia conference. What transpired between the two foreign ministers has not been made public. And then you had the two prime ministers meeting in Lahore. What transpired between them has not been made public. If you go by the buzz which is there in the strategic circles, especially those people who look at South Asia, there seems to be something happening on Siachen and Sir Creek. So what is this government doing behind the back of this country on Siachen and Sir Creek, and what transpired in those three meetings? There has to be a public statement by the government.
There has to be a public statement by the government. Sudhanshu Trivedi, can we expect therefore a public statement by the government on what is the nature of the back channel talks that have taken place? And B, can we expect the government to order a full, fair, transparent inquiry into the security lapses that went into the Pathankot incident? Can we expect now the government to take this on as a primary focus?
Government has already ordered an inquiry that will be conducted by NIA. But in the entire depiction of the series of events by Manish Tiwari ji, he is lacking or deliberately avoiding some crucial points. Yes, we invited Nawaz Sharif in the swearing-in ceremony, but after that, if you look at the firing on the border, such a strong retaliation by Indian forces, if you go by the reports of the Pakistan media, even they have raised the issue to United Nations that India is doing too much. And after that, in UFA, for the first time, Pakistan is agreeing that to the level of Prime Minister to discuss specifically on terror. And in the last 1.5 years, there is only one formal talk with Pakistan, that is NSA level talk in Bangkok, and that is on terror. So we are talking on terror, not talks and terror together. This is the clear series of events, and this Pathankot incident is the first terrorist attack, I think, in the last 10-15 years, in which after a terrorist attack, Pakistan Prime Minister had shown some reaction on its own.
Can I
so
therefore,
there is a distinct difference in our policy and their policy.
Manish Tiwari, let me give you a final word then. Here is Sudhanshu Trivedi saying, and possibly many out there will say, this is a moment for the government and the opposition to stand together. This is not a moment for nitpicking. This is not a moment for political one-upmanship. This is a moment for us to stand together in the face of the challenge of terror. I'm going to ask you this, is that not the role that the opposition as a constructive opposition should be playing in this country?
Well, Mr. Sardesai, the first thing the government needs to do is to immediately call off the foreign secretary level talks. Number two, the government needs to make a very clear statement, and it is not a back channel, it is actually the front channel which is operating between India and Pakistan, that what has transpired in these three meetings. And number three, if there has been unprecedented firing on the line of control and the international border, what is the BJP government patting itself on the back for? Well, why did you then call Nawaz Sharif to Delhi? You know, you should have calibrated your response. You should have possibly been cautious in the entire approach. One day you call Nawaz Sharif, the other day you call off foreign secretary level talks, primarily because the Pakistani High Commissioner met the Hurriyat. The third day you sent the foreign secretary on a spin of South Asia to land up in Islamabad to resume the talks. Then you have the hugs and kisses of UFA. Then you have the verbal kabaddi between the foreign minister and the national security advisor of Pakistan. Then you have the Bangkok dialogue. Then you have a dialogue in Islamabad. After that you have the Lahore process. And then now you are sending your foreign secretary to Islamabad when it was the turn of the Pakistanis to come and have the meeting in Delhi. Why is this government not only bending over backwards but prostrating themselves before Pakistan? What is the pressure they are under?
Are you under any pressure? Are you prostrating?
Or is it the quest
quick,
for a Nobel Peace Prize?
Sudhanshu, are you prostrating? Is there any specific pressure that you are under?
I will just give an example and the picture will be quite clear. When Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Lahore, not only the ruling party of Pakistan, but all the opposition parties also supported, except Hafiz Saeed. But in India, the main opposition party that ruled India for 56 years was somehow making the same tone and tenor as Hafiz Saeed. And not only this, when they were in power, this was the same month of January 2013 when Sushil Kumar Shinde, in the capacity of Home Minister of India, had used the word Hindu Athankavad. And then he was getting a pat on the back by Hafiz Saeed in Lahore. So why it happens that the Congress party, with due respect to Manish Tiwari ji personally, but his party is having such a stand which is totally unfit for a party which is 130 years old and ruled for 56 years. As Rajiv has said very well, that at this juncture, both the party should show a sense of
Congress has much to answer for. The BJP, I can recall what your Prime Minister said when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat in May 2013. And he spoke about not having chicken biryani.
To compare the Congress party to Hafiz Saeed just because the Congress party is trying to hold them accountable to their own rhetoric of 10 years. That
even when the daily talks were failed,
in UFA you considered
before the press conference of Pakistan, it was the press conference of Congress party.
All you did was elevated the Havana process, which was at the level of additional secretaries to the level of national security advisors. So therefore, I suggest, and I would like to ask Mr. Sudhanshu Trivedi, kindly withdraw that statement. It is highly objectionable.
Do you want to withdraw that statement likening the Congress to Hafiz Saeed?
The Indian National Congress to Hafiz Saeed.
Sudhanshu Trivedi, do you want...
That's
just
not
a minute.
only hitting below the belt, but that is, going completely off the charts.
Do you want to withdraw that statement? Because many would point out to what your Prime Minister or our Prime Minister Narendra Modi said in May of 2013 when he was campaigning to become Prime Minister of this country. He was Gujarat Chief Minister. He said, how can you have chicken biryani with the other side when our soldiers are being beheaded? So much has changed in the last 2 years. Clearly,
yes,
suddenly, you're ready to have that chicken biryani, even those terror attacks take place. Much has changed, Manish, Sudhanshu Trivedi. That is the reality.
The reality was, when the soldiers were beheaded, the then Defence Minister A.K. Antony was hesitating, taking the name of Pakistan Army on the floor of the House, and none of the Congress leaders visited the villages of those soldiers. At the same time, several Congress leaders were visiting the villages of those who are accused of terror. And on the issue of Hafiz Saeed, I have just put two facts. The opposition of Hafiz Saeed just 10 days back, and the opposition of the Congress party, and the January 2013 statement of Sushil Kumar Shinde. I am not saying anything. If somebody wants to draw a conclusion, they themselves can draw a conclusion. That's why I am saying that even if some indirect indication is going, Congress party, the grand old party of India, should have the maturity that they should not be seen as even remotely resonating the same thing which these type of extremist forces are doing.
Let's leave it there. Let's leave it there.
Mr. Sudhanshu Trivedi, you sell out the national interest. You sell out this country. You totally go back on what you have been saying for 10 years. You have a policy of flip-flops, somersaults, and 180-degree turns Quay Pakistan. In fact, you have no policy at all. And when all that is pointed out, the only one response that you are able to come up with is that you are saying the same thing which Hafiz Saeed is saying. And for God's sake, please do not sell this country down a street for a Nobel Prize. You are playing with India's national security. What happened in Gurdaspur, what happened in Pathankot, what happened in Ufa and what has happened in Lahore is something which this country will have to pay for it with the blood of its soldiers. You have been trifling and trampling with India's national security, and the only response that you can come up with is try and shoot the messenger. That is really pathetic, for the lack of a better word. It is high time that you as a government got your act together and understood that you are a complete laughing stock in Pakistan. The deep establishment is laughing its way to the bank because they've run circles around you, your government and your Prime Minister, and you do not have, you know, any response, rather than rely on the word of Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, whose own writ does not run beyond dry wind.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there.
Last sentence.
Yes.
Manishji might be having, his party might be having some problem with the indicative statements, and I'm talking about on record in Sharm el-Sheikh, you have accepted that we are involved in Baluchistan. This was here the safeguarding the national interest. And in Samjhauta Express, you have given an alibi to Pakistan that even Indian local forces are involved in terrorist attacks. So these type of policies in which in your party, the NIA chief and the IB chief were standing against each other on Ishrat Jahan's case. So this type of compromise
go back in history
during the time of UPA was pathetic. For the first time in the Indian history, intelligence bureau and NIA chief were standing against each other on a single case.
Your government should have facilitated a free and fair investigation.
I'm going to leave it there.
The difficulty is that you've had double standards on the question of terror, and that is why you've been caught in your own rhetoric, whether it is Pakistan.
Double standards were very much clear when one government agency is saying one thing, another is saying another thing during your time. This was a clear indicative documentary proof of double standards.
I have to end it here.
Trivedi, will it take another terror attack for you to call off the foreign secretary level talks?
On this issue, we are saying after the due conclusion is drawn, then we will decide the further course of action.
Has run circles around
let's leave it there.
Your Prime
Manish
Minister,
Tiwari,
your
let's leave it there.
Minister, your entire government,
Manish
does
Tiwari,
not know whether they are coming or going. So
we will leave it there.
Please, for God's sake, stop trifling and trampling with the national security of this country.
Manish Tiwari, Sudhanshu Trivedi, two views in our political face-off this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
Pictures of the Parliament building in Delhi, pictures of Rajpath, pictures of several other sensitive...